because they come out of their waiting room and then they join.
Okay.
And our recording is in process. Okay. We'll just wait for a couple of minutes. People are joining in. Okay. Okay, we have about 79 people on board. Let's just give it a minute.
Or we can run the anthem first and then you can do the introduction.
Let's just start. We'll go with the process you started. It takes a minute.
Okay. All right.
Let's go with your thing. Okay. A very good afternoon, or I say good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for taking time out and joining us on this panel discussion on the prevention of transfusion transmitted infections in Indian blood centers. Today's focus will be on the small and medium blood centers. These are perennial problems which we are hoping to address through today's guidance seminar. And we have a very esteemed set of panelists here today, of course, moderated with Professor Ashok Rattan, Dr. Asim Tiwari, Senior Director, Transfusion Medicine from Medanta, Medicity, Gurgaon, and Dr. S. Ashwin Kumar, Associate Professor, Department of Transfusion Medicine from Institute of Child Health and Government Hospital for Children, Egmore. JMitra and Kaho extend their warmest Diwali greetings to everybody, and we are very pleased to have you here today. I'd like to hand over the forum now to Professor Ashok Rattan. So we can start with the Kaho anthem now. Professor Rattan, the audio is not playing, sir.
Hand in hand, step by step, we'll try. Father, hand together, we gotta try to give joy. We are. Joining hands fall, giving the culture for patience. Setting up standards, way, best foot forward. Won't ever leave stone unturned. We have a fire, we want back to back, breathe, crane, and sing their skin. Spreading the message of quality health care, for safe patient care, a better nation. Go, I know, right. We have what's right.
CAO stands for Consortium of Accredited Healthcare Organization. It is a not-for-profit organization dedicated to patient safety. Its vision is to be admired global leader, transforming healthcare quality and safety. The purpose is to work together for safer healthcare and add value to all stakeholders. The patrons of CAHO are Dr. Giridhar Gyani, Dr. Venkatesh Thupil, Dr. Alexander Thomas, Air Marshal Dr. Pavan Kapoor, Dr. M.I. Sahadullah, Dr. Nagendra Swami. The central CAHO team has Dr. Vijay Agarwal, a pediatrician, as the president. Dr. Lalu Joseph is from CMC Vellore. She is the secretary. Dr. Shankar Sengupta is from West Bengal, and he is a vice president. And Dr. Narayan Sehgal is a surgeon running his own private nursing home. He is the finance secretary. The diagnostic division has Dr. Aparna Jairam as the chairperson, Dr. V. Ravikumar from NIMHANS as vice chairperson, and Dr. Vinita Kothari from Indore as the secretary. She will be hosting the 5th edition of Diagnosticon in Indore on 24th and 25th January. Our logo consists of 3 petals and 1 drop. The petals represent health institutions, diagnostic centers, quality professionals, and the drop of water represents learning and continuous improvement. All of this comes together with our focus on patient safety. Our activities are focused on ensuring safer patient care, strengthening quality, promoting accreditation, sharing best practices, and creating benchmarks. We have been in operation for 12 years. On May, we celebrated the 12th year of our foundation. I am Ashok Rattan, an independent advisor and consultant for diagnostic labs. And with me, I have 2 of the stalwarts in transfusion medicine. Dr. Aseem K. Tiwari is Senior Director of Transfusion Medicine in Medanta, the Medicity. He has over 25 years of experience with more than 150 publications. He reviews he's a reviewer of several journals. He is recipient of many awards: H.D. Shorey Award in 2009, H.R. Jolly Award in 2016, and Mother Teresa Award in 2024 of Indian Society of Transfusion Medicine and Immunohematology. Currently, he is Vice President of Indian Society of Transfusion Medicine. His current interest is transfusion-transmitted infections, the topic for today's discussion, immunohematology, apheresis, and transplant immunology. The other consultant with us is Dr. S. Ashwin Kumar. He is Associated Professor of Transfusion Medicine at Institute of Child Health and Government Hospital for Children in Egmore, Chennai. His academic qualifications is MD Transfusion Medicine, a gold medalist. He is an NABH accessor for blood centers, as I was told, that blood bank has been replaced by blood centers. Previous experience from 2014 to 2016 is that he was at Global Health City, Chennai. From 2016 to date, he's at the Institute of Child Health and Government Hospital for Children. He's lifetime member of IMA, ISBTI, and ISTM, and his current interest is apheresis, red cell serology, and quality management systems. Blood transfusion has a number of benefits, as you all know, and it involves a lot of things. Today, we'll focus on transfusion safety, focused only on making sure that transmission of infections do not occur during transfusion. It was in 1875 that Karl Landsteiner noticed that transfusing any blood will not do. In 1900 and 1901, he then went on to describe the ABO group, and for that he was awarded Nobel Prize in 1930. In India, in 1939, the India's first blood bank was set up in School of Tropical Medicine in Calcutta by Sir Upendra Brahmachari, the then chairman of Bengal Red Cross Society. Blood transfusion is remarkably safe in high-income countries, where safeguards have long protected the blood supply against major transmissible infections. Globally, approximately 118 million units of blood are collected each year, but it is difficult to know the exact number of transfusions performed annually. While around 15 million units are transfused in the United States and 85 million units globally, more may be needed to meet the worldwide demand. Some estimates suggest that around 30 million components are transfused annually, though the figure may be underestimate the true total. A study in 2022 extrapolated the eligible blood donors population in India at 402 million. The supply in India was estimated to be 33.8 donations against the demand of 36.3 per thousand donation, translating into a shortage of 1 million units annually. Blood is required majorly by the medical specialty, surgery, obstetrics and gynecology, and pediatricians. In India, it's been postulated, it was published from ELISA that there seem to be about 2.17% of transfusions are related to infection. When they reviewed the situation in other places, hepatitis B, HIV, syphilis, HCV, and malaria, as well as co-infections, were the parameters. The infections were mostly by male. As you'll notice that the donors were mostly males, very few females have donated blood, and the transmission of infection occurs whether it is a replacement or a voluntary donor. In the West, donor selection, risk-based deferral, laboratory screening, bacterial culture, and pathogen reduction are the strategies used to make blood supply safe. There are many bacteria and pathogens which are present in the blood, but whether they should be included or not in screening depends upon various factors. One is ramification, that means what is the severity of infection, what is the likelihood of detection in the absence of a defined intervention, what is the tolerance of standard processing and storage conditions, what is the transfusion transmissibility, and what is clinical penetration, that means development of symptoms following infection, following the transmission. The bacteria and the pathogens have been classified into various categories, risk categories. The risk-based categories in high-income countries is HIV, hepatitis B, hepatitis C, and transfusion medicine. And as you'll notice there, that it is susceptible to risk-based referral, donor serology, donor nucleic acid amplification test, pathogen reduction, and even refrigeration. And the risk in the West is not in percentage, but in 1 in million. These are the other categories. Category 2 consists of malaria. Category 3 has hepatitis E virus, HTLV 1 and 2, West Nile virus, T. cruzi, babesia, CMV. In high-income countries, dengue, leishmania, toxoplasma, Zika, chikungunya are rare. So today we have the consultants who would answer some of the important questions. The questions we want to ask is so that we can get their expertise. They come from high-end blood banks, but we expect that they would tell us what they are doing in their blood banks, but also advise what should be done in smaller blood banks and what are the conditions which should not be compromised. So the first question, let me start with Dr. Ashwin, who's already on the screen, is what is the current status of blood centers in India?
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for this opportunity. And also thank you for this question. So, the current status of blood center in India. So, India has currently around like 3,000 blood centers, across the state. And these blood centers are run by different organizations. Government-run blood center, hospital-attached blood center, and standalone blood center, which is run by charitable or even trust. So since these blood centers are managed by different level of organization, the quality and consistency of the blood products offer varies from one center to another. Because each blood center has their own vision and their own process, procedures, and protocol. Some blood center will be testing infectious parameters by rapid card, ELISA testing, or chemiluminescence testing. But some centers may use NAT testing. Additionally, they use NAT testing for screening. So this testing process will have a variation between standalone blood banks. Even standalone blood banks nowadays they are performing NAT, but it all depends upon the vision of the blood center. And here the main challenge is they will not have a uniform standard in the quality of blood. Whereas in other countries, the blood centers, in other countries, we don't find so many blood centers. So rather, for example, Thailand, Singapore, or Australia, even Australia. So the center which collect processed blood or Red Cross. So they have a uniform procedure, protocols, and they perform quality controls. So the standard of the quality will be maintained. Here, even though we have all the mandatory tests like HIV, hepatitis B, and HCV, been done by approved kit, which has been approved by the DGHS. Even though like quality differs from one blood bank to other, it all depends upon the testing protocol and procedure.
Thank you very much for this. Dr. Asim, what is the regulations which guide the conduct of blood bank? Because I thought blood banks are very heavily regulated.
Good evening, everyone. Yes, that's right. Blood bank is a regulated activity, and there are 5 tests which are mandatory: anti-HIV, anti-HCV, hepatitis B surface antigen, test for syphilis, and test for malaria. So all the blood banks are licensed, and all the blood banks test for all the 5 markers. There's no doubt about it. But as Dr. Ashwin said, that practices vary. Number one, and we have very fragmented blood transfusion services, government, private, standalone, hospital based, and we are too many, and therefore the resources get divided, the manpower get divided. There is no centralized regulator. Of course license is given, but Ideally, there should have been like Telecom Regulatory Authority of India is for telecom. Likewise, there should be a centralized regulator for blood centers, and it should be manned by people from our specialty. Unfortunately, even in the licensing, drug inspectors who are generally pharmacists come to inspect us. Though they may be expert in inspecting a pharmaceutical company, they are not really experts in understanding the blood transfusion services. So sometimes there's a communication gap, and they would not be they'll be able to they'll not understand the rules or the essence of the rules which are there in the Drug and Cosmetic Act. So those are the kind of gaps there are. Again, Dr. Ashwin rightly said that quality standards may vary. So somebody may do a rapid test and somebody may be doing a chemiluminescence as well as NAT testing. So there is a lack of uniformity across more than 4,000 blood centers. While possibly we don't need more than 200 or something in the entire country. So ideally, the way it is run in Western countries, including our neighbors Sri Lanka, for example, NCR, we just need one big Red Cross blood bank, which collects a huge number of blood units, test them with the best of technology, and the hospitals, ask for certain requirement from that central blood bank, and that central Red Cross blood bank provides them the number of units that they would require on a weekly basis or a daily basis, and they don't collect. So collection is centralized, the processing is centralized, the testing is centralized, while the issue is at the level of the hospital. So that's the best organization or the structure which should govern the blood transfusion centers.
That's actually I was in the Middle East for some time, and they had in Sharjah a blood bank which served the northern part of UAE, and I was staying in Ras Al Khaimah, which was about 100 kilometers away, and our hospitals will get from Sharjah. So we had to inform them beforehand. Then we'll send a driver and he'll pick up the sample. So I think that system worked very well. And instead of having too many fragmented blood banks, I agree with you that we should have a centralized blood bank because all the donations is voluntary. So I guess what we need to do is together work together to increase the donation by healthy individuals. So what is the Dr. Ashwin, what is the effectiveness of these regulations? And as Asim is suggesting that we should have central blood bank rather than too many blood banks.
So as
What
sir
is your
said
view on
before, like central blood bank, they process blood in a particular center where they can avail, they can avail even latest facilities there, and manpower. Yeah, we can get an abundant manpower there. So instead of satellites, they can provide a satellite center like for Chennai. If they have a one blood bank and rest all like satellite center, so they can distribute blood to the satellite center like a storage center, and then they can issue. So that would be great. For in drug and the blood centers, they usually come under Drug and Cosmetic Act 1940. So it comes under an act. So these blood centers are monitored by CDSCO and state drug controller, and the technical and policy are provided by NACO and NBTC. So additionally, we need a NOC from the SACS, that is a State Blood Transfusion, like in Chennai, Tamil Nadu AIDS Control Society has to give a NOC to start a blood bank. So these regulatory body, they used to monitor blood banks, but only problem is the inspection period is 5 years. Like they come for like first 5 years they come, and the interval is too long. It should be done in a frequent audit, like 1 year once they have to audit the blood bank. So we'll come to know whether the blood bank is doing as per SOP, or they are following a quality good, whether they are following a good manufacturing practice. So continuous monitoring should be there. And here I would like to highlight better the all over India, if they provide a better software for monitoring the blood banks, which is a foolproof software. So that will be a very easy source to find any malpractice or anything is happening inside the blood centers. So that monitoring system will be very useful. Like anything with the software monitoring, that would be very useful.
And what is the percentage of component that are made from blood banks?
See, the component made from blood bank, it all depends upon the blood bank policy. So some blood centers, they make 100% component. Some blood centers, they need some whole blood. For example, cardiothoracic surgery, even though whole blood is not indicated, but still certain hospital, they prefer whole blood rather than blood components. So it all depends upon their own hospital policy and protocol.
Dr. Asim, by having these components, would we be um, increasing the quantity of blood that has been collected and serving more persons? As we in the beginning we said there's about 1 million shortage of 1 million unit shortage. Would that be overcome by doing the components?
Absolutely, sir. So the modern way of using blood is blood components. Whole blood is only of historical relevance. Almost every disease condition, including the massive transfusion, can be managed by blood components. So, blood components, as you rightly said, number one, you split one unit into two or three or four components so that you are able to help more than one patient. That is one advantage. Second is makes therapy more specific. So, a patient of anemia has to receive only red cell. That patient should not receive plasma or platelet, which the patient does not require. Or a dengue patient requires only platelets. That patient does not require the red cells. So it makes therapy more specific, more scientific. And the third is that different components have optimum temperature and shelf life. So while platelets have to be stored at room temperature for a shelf life of 5 days, the RBCs are stored at 2 to 6 degrees for a shelf life of 42 days, and the plasma is frozen and kept at temperatures lower than -30 for 1 year. So that is the third reason why whole blood should be split into components. So component is the only thing. But again, as Dr. Ashwin said, there is lack of uniformity. So somebody may be making 100% components, somebody may be making only a fraction of blood collected into components. So again, there is a variability and there's a lack of uniformity in the country.
So one is the administrative part, that if it is centralized, so that will solve some of the problems. Second one again is if it is centralized, then the deficiency or the shortage of blood will also be taken care of. The third will be what are the tests what must be done, and of the components, which are the things that you use and which you would recommend that is the bare minimum. So what is the optimum for testing to prevent transfusion transmitted infections, and what is the best and what is the bare minimum that must be done to safeguard the blood supply?
Dr. Ashwin, you want to
Yeah,
answer?
yeah, I can answer, sir. So as sir told before, the mandatory test in India is HIV, hepatitis B, HCV, syphilis, and malaria. So these are the mandatory tests we have to do. So here the risk is higher among the first time and replacement donor rather than the voluntary donor, because voluntary donor they will be screening for TTI, that is transfusion transmittable infection, routinely. So if they are positive, they'll stop donating blood. So this first time donor and the replacement donor are at a higher risk. So first thing here, prevention is like effective donor pre-donation counseling. So counseling should be effectively, and we have to follow the SOPs. And next one is like a very important thing is we need to display self-deferral criteria and confidential unit exclusion board in the reception of the blood bank, because a person will come to donate blood, but he may not, when he sees the self-deferral criteria, so he can defer from himself rather than donating. And another thing is, main thing is confidential unit exclusion. That is nothing but donor is coming to donate blood, but due to the peer pressure with like friends or family members, he might donate blood. Maybe his blood might not be safe for transfusion. So he could have a high risk behavior or IV drug abuse. So what he can do is, if there is a confidential unit exclusion facility is there, so after donation, the donor will call the blood bank and he informs the blood bank that this blood, my blood is not safe for transfusion, so kindly discard the blood. So this two things, that confidential unit exclusion and self-referral criteria, we have to educate the donor with these two things. So this will prevent the risk of transfusion transmittable infection. And diagnostic test is again very important, like HIV, hepatitis B, HCV. There are multiple platforms are there available in Indian market to test it, like for example rapid and ELISA testing 3rd generation, and we have ELISA 4th generation, chemiluminescence and nucleic acid testing. So these are the tests which they are currently doing in blood centers nowadays. But the effectiveness of this test, I would prefer, like we need to do additional testing apart from serology. If you are doing ELISA, you do additional NAT testing. So this NAT testing will reduce the window period, so it decreases the risk of transmission like HIV or hepatitis B and HCV.
Okay, and Asim, then what are the tests that you would like to do, and what would you like to recommend the smaller centers to do?
Sir, what we do is CLIA and NAT both simultaneously on every unit. But I also understand that it may not be possible for smaller blood banks to do CLIA and NAT. So the bare minimum that I would suggest is an ELISA, especially the latest generation. So in case of HIV, it has to be a 4th generation ELISA. And likewise, ELISA for HCV and hepatitis B also. For syphilis, I would recommend that people should do the treponemal test first. And for malaria, a better test is a Plasmodium LDH based rapid test. So this is what is the minimum. Then very interesting thing is that there is an alternative to NAT. Since NAT is limited to less than 10% of the blood centers in the country, uh, Professor Rattan, you would surely know that earlier WHO suggested a testing strategy, that you do a first test which is very sensitive, and then you do a second test which is very specific. So that takes care of both the things. The sensitive takes care of the safety part, so blood is safe, very very safe. And the second test, the subsequent test which is done, which is a specific, also takes care of donor notification. So you're not unnecessarily notifying a donor, who may be actually a first sensitive test may give a biologically false positive. So you don't notify the false positive one, you only notify the ones which are truly positive. So the first sensitive test followed by a second specific test, which can be rapid test as well. And this is published from India as well, from our center as well. That a first sensitive test followed by a second specific test is almost as good as a Western blot or as a NAT testing, because the comparison was made to a NAT testing only.
Right. So what would be the sensitive test that you would refer to? Which methodology?
So ELISA or CLIA. Rapid is can be a subsequent test or the second test or a supplementary test. It can't be the first test. The first test has to be a EIA or a CLIA.
Okay. So that becomes very sensitive. And then once it's positive, then you confirm. That's what you are
Correct.
trying.
Correct,
Right.
sir.
And so that means it can do without NAT then.
Yes, I mean, for those who can't do NAT, this is an alternative.
Yeah.
If you can do NAT,
Okay. See,
absolutely all
we
right,
all
there's no
agree.
debate.
We all agree that internationally it is NAT which is the most sensitive, and of course biologically also, because if you're demonstrating the presence of the DNA or RNA, then that is confirmed.
So direct.
That there is infection, likelihood of transmission of infection. That's the most definitive. But because of the cost, because of the logistics, we have to think of alternate methods to make the blood supply safe or safer and still not compromise on the. So what is the risk of infection at the moment in India in various centers?
Yes, sir. So there's a recent paper from AIMS Delhi by Dr. Hemchandra Mishra and colleagues. And I remember you mentioned the Western data, which, for example, let us say it has 1 in hepatitis risk, residual risk of hepatitis B is 1 in 1.5 million. Now, the residual risk means that despite testing, there is some risk the disease can be transmitted. So it is residual risk, which is a good measure to see how good your blood services are, how safe your blood transfusion is. So the residual risk in Western countries is, for example, hepatitis B 1 in 1.5 million. And when they did in India, they found 16 in 1 million. The residual risk of hepatitis is 16 in 1 million, which means that it is almost 20 times more than the Western country. Likewise, for HCV, while Western countries 1 in 2.6 million, and in our case, it is 4.4 in 1 million. And same as for HIV, it is 3.1 in 1 million. So the risk in a low or medium income country like India, India is a medium HDI country, is many times higher as compared to high human development index countries or the developed countries. So the developing countries or underdeveloped countries have a much higher prevalence, and therefore they need more robust testing as compared to Western countries which already have very robust testing systems. So in our case, the residual risk is much higher, which again makes or underlines a case for very sensitive test, for TTI testing in blood centers.
Right. And Dr. Ashwin, so it will also depend upon what is the epidemiology of the infections prevalent in the society. Because in the West, I think it's universal to have hepatitis B vaccination. In India also, it is universal, but not as prevalent, though, or it started very late. I think in 2010 itself, they started, or thereabout, they started having universal vaccination. So many of us are not vaccinated before we went into the medical practice. So what is your view on what needs to be done?
So this is regarding vaccination, sir.
Vaccination is no, just testing. Which tests need to be done? And as Dr. Asim said, that we need to do more testing and more vigilant because the chances of TTI is more in India than in the West. It's the frequency is 16 times more than in the West.
So as I previously said, testing with the with the fourth generation ELISA or CLIA. We have fourth generation ELISA in HIV, hepatitis B, and HCV. Like we have all the fourth generation kits in ELISA. So either ELISA or CLIA along with NAT testing will reduce the risk of transmission transmittable infection with proper donor pre-donation counseling. So this will definitely reduce the TTI infections.
Right. I think there's always a question about pooling of samples. Whenever they have NAT, in the West, they pool. But in India, it might be counterproductive. What would you say about it?
In India, we have two platforms like Minipool NAT is there as well as ID NAT is there. So that's what I told like previously. Like it's all depends upon the vision of the center. Like they can go for Minipool NAT is somewhat cheaper than ID NAT. So ID NAT is a bit expensive. So the quality, the consistency and quality of the product will definitely vary from center to center. If they do IDNAT, yeah, it is again it is not a foolproof. Even IDNAT is all will also have a window period. So blood, we cannot say blood is 100% safe. Like even if you test with NAT, there is a residual risk of transfusion transmittable infection.
What are your views, Asim?
So both the tests which are available in India are US FDA approved, so they can both be used for blood screening. But yes, the ID NAT is more sensitive because if we really take a seroconversion panel, then the ID test would detect maybe a day earlier as compared to a mini pool. That is a fact world over.
And I think it's also there that since the prevalence of infection is more in India, if you do MP NAT, that's mini pool NAT, then you might have to open up the or deconvolute the pool more frequently because you'll get positive signal. While in the West, if it is 1 in a million, then they don't have to, even if they have 16 in the pool, they would rarely get a positive signal. While if you're doing ID NAT, then if it is negative, you are sure that it's not infectious, so you can release the report.
Yes.
What is the turnaround time normally what is the time between collection of sample and release of the blood for patient use?
Dr. Ashwin, you want to take that?
Yeah. So collection of sample, you mean by donor collection and turnaround time to issue, or you
Yeah,
mean
I think
like
that's what somebody was
yeah,
asking about. How
yes.
do you keep your
So usually the
turnaround
blood
time?
after pre-donation screening, the blood will be collected and it will be stored before the component separation. So we need to separate the component within less than 6 hours. Then after separating the components, parallelly we have to run the TTI screening as well as the red cell serology. And each component have been stored with different temperature as I told before. And during the issue, we'll be getting a pre-transfusion sample of the patient, and we need to cross-match with the donor. We need to cross-match with the bag we have. And then if it is a compatible, then we can issue the blood for transfusion. So this is the routine procedure, like process in the blood bank. Collection, processing, that is component preparation and TTI testing, red cell serology, and issue of blood components. So this is the process of the blood bank. So turnaround time for cross matching, again, it depends upon the test we do. Like some centers, they do tube testing, which is a routine testing, which takes up longer time. Some centers, they adapt to column agglutination technique, so that turnaround time will be less comparatively to the tube testing, because column agglutination, it's not mandatory to wash the red cells. So you'll be saving time in washing the red cells. Again, SPRCA technology is there. So it all depends upon the technology we use.
Okay, and
So may I?
yeah,
Yes, sir.
sure.
The turnaround time for donor testing is the first thing which I want to clarify is, you generally have an inventory which is there. So there is no urgency to test the donor blood. Having said that, it generally takes just few hours to test the collection for the entire day. So generally, the process in most of the blood centers is that if I collect blood today, by today evening my testing would get completed, and tomorrow, I may choose to, label the units and shift them to the finished good inventory, from quarantine inventory to finished good inventory. But turnaround time in TTI for donor is never a concern for most of the centers.
Okay. So is it possible that the most sensitive test is done in the blood center, and for NAT testing, it is given to a central lab?
Yes, and that is sometimes practice. So certain NAT centers, what they do, they have a hub and spoke model. So they collect samples from various. So for example, it's a chain of hospital. So 4 or 5 hospitals would then send a sample to a centralized lab. The NAT testing will happen there in the evening or overnight, and they would get the test result through email the next day morning. So it works very well.
So as more and more chain of labs or chain of hospitals develop, that may be a strategy, especially in the bigger centers. What is the practice in Chennai, Dr. Ashwin?
Um, so since I'm working in the government hospital, so I managed to do with fourth generation HIV and hepatitis B and HCV third generation. So one update I have done here in my center is I'm using an automation for ELISA testing. So this automation will prevent manual errors. So I have made an automation for TTI testing. So one disadvantage in ELISA is it takes longer time compared to CLIA. So CLIA you can give a random sample, so you can get the results within for 30 minutes or 40 minutes. But here it takes like 3 to 4 hours to get the report. So the turnaround time for the test is a bit longer compared to CLIA. So sometimes, even
Right.
sometimes
So,
I use rapid sometimes if there is an emergency release of blood products, or if I wanted to do a apheresis. So that time I do with rapid card, but I validate the test with my controls, with using my controls, and I used to document the rapid cards either by taking a picture and I'll be storing it. So that thing I am doing here in Chennai.
okay. Dr. Asim, as you said, you do both serology as well as NAT on all the samples. What is your observation about picking up or not picking up false positive or false negatives with serology?
Sir, serology, generally false positives are picked up because it's a very sensitive test. So therefore, I would recommend that there should be a supplementary test which is more specific uh, before we notify the donor.
Mhm.
As far as the samples which are missed by serology and picked up by NAT, it's called NAT yield, the ones which serology is not able to pick and the NAT is able to pick up. The numbers vary from one center to another, but generally, if you look at the data from the country, it varies from 1 in 800 to 1 in 2000, roughly 1 in 1,500. So, when we test for 1,500 donors on both, there may be one sample which is not picked up by CLIA, may be picked up by NAT.
Okay. So it will become safer if CLIA is used as the primary screening test, and if possible, for additional, uh, of course, NAT, they keep on saying it decreases the window period. But I was thinking whether that is the purpose of, that is the right purpose of NAT, or whether by taking a good history, we would have eliminated many of those, or self-deferral would have occurred, and those who have had recent uh, risky behavior would have already stepped away from donating blood.
Sir, my take is that each of them have their own significance. So while a very meticulous medical history questionnaire, self-deferral, confidential note exclusion have a very important role to play. The type of donors, if we get blood from voluntary donors, that's as compared to replacement donor, that itself is a very huge impetus for making blood safer. And the second part is the testing part. And the third part is also how we use blood rationally. So when we speak to physicians, surgeons, and gynecologists and pediatricians, we tell them, how not to use blood. How can we sort of avoid using blood where it is not really indicated? How can we have a transfusion trigger, which is slightly at a higher threshold as compared to a lower threshold? And, so these three things are the pillars of blood safety, which have to be, I mean, they're not mutually exclusive, they work in tandem. So all of these have to be there. So NAT definitely adds an additional layer of safety, because those 1 in 1,500 which you would have missed by serology, you are able to detect by NAT. But it comes at a cost. So we can't propose it for the entire country. If resources permit, yes, it's a very good thing to do. But if resources don't permit, then at least do a fourth generation ELISA or a CLIA is the message.
Okay, very good. You want to add anything, Dr. Ashwin?
No, sir. Thank you. Sir,
What are your views on pathogen reduction?
sir, please would you like to answer, sir?
Uh,
Asim.
Dr. Asim?
Yes, sir. So
Pathogen
pathogen
reduction.
reduction is, in my opinion, not meant for a country like India, for two reasons. Number one, we don't have a pathogen reduction for RBC, which is the commonest blood component which is used. So the commonest blood component in the entire country which is used is either a red cell or whole blood. Platelets and plasma, the usage is much lesser as compared to the usage of RBC. And pathogen reduction is not available for RBC. It is only available for plasma and platelet. So that is one very major limitation world over. Second is it is expensive. Pathogen reduction is very expensive and tedious. So, whichever method you use, generally people use soralin based method. So you have to add soralin, you have to irradiate to UV light, and then you have to remove soralin. So it is a very sort of long process, expensive process, and doesn't really add much to the safety. So if you look at cost effectiveness, pathogen reduction really does not offer much, especially for a resource constrained country like India.
Okay, right. Though there was ribavirin also, ribavirin with UV light, and since
Yes, so there's ribavirin, there is soralin, there is third uh, also. So there are
methylene
two,
blue,
three options which are
yeah,
available,
but
but all of them are expensive. So, I mean, people are doing only on a research scale. So I'm aware that KGMU Lucknow is doing some research, maybe some other centers are doing, but nobody is really using it as a practice in the country.
all right. So then, how do we motivate voluntary donors? Because I think one of the bottleneck is getting people to donate. And what would be the ways you would like to use to encourage people to donate?
Sir, the best motivation for voluntary again would be decentralization of services. So if there is only one Red Cross in the NCR, and they have a lot of mobile vans which go to universities and people where there are young people, and it is very convenient. So number two is we take the blood to the donor. We don't expect the donor to come to the blood bank. The mobile vans reach at their doorstep. It is very convenient for them to donate. So they just take half an hour, get screened and donate and walk out. And a lot of recognition to them, a lot of respect for voluntary blood donation. That is what, and it can be done. I mean, I worked at Prathama Blood Center in Ahmedabad many years back, and we used to have these mobile vans, and we were collecting 36,000 units per annum in 2000 2001, some 25 years back from now. So it is possible even in India.
What about Chennai?
So Chennai,
Yeah,
we
it
do
can
have
happen.
Chennai, we do have a mobile blood bank, mobile collection centers. So we have two buses here in Chennai, which is operated by government. So we do collect blood in mobile vans. And another thing is, before what I do is before going to blood donation camp in a college or IT company, so I used to give the motivational talk about the blood donation. So what are the pros and cons? So is it really need to be scared for blood donation? So what are the things you need to do before the donation, during the donation, and after the donation? So education is very important. So what I see in Chennai is like before COVID, the annual collection, which was like much more higher in my center, like around like 15,000 units we collect annually before COVID. But after COVID, that collection, like number of donors is like it's decreasing year by year. Like from 15,000, it came to 13, 12, and now I'm collecting around like 8,000 units. The awareness about the blood donation has gone down in the public. That is mainly due to the new press releases about the wastage of blood and like uh, uh, like in social medias. So these have a negative impact with the donors. Like whenever I donate blood, it goes waste. So we need to educate the donor about the blood donation process.
Okay. What about the artificial blood that was in the news from Japan, that they have an artificial blood which doesn't need any blood grouping? Any views on that?
Sir, I also see that question coming up very often in the chat box.
Uh-huh.
Uh, Sir, it is still at the lab level. It is we are nowhere close to it in a clinical practice.
Okay, so it will take some more time before
Till
it
some
becomes
time.
available. How do you monitor the functioning of the blood bank? What are the parameters that you use?
So there are quality indicators in the blood bank. Like you can set a quality indicators for each and every process. So like collection, how often you are failing to do a phlebotomy, like failed collection. So that is one part of quality indicators, and quality indicators for TTI. How often you get TTI positive donors. So we can set up parameters of quality indicators, and using a control, we can monitor a quality process in the blood bank.
Okay. And what about hemovigilance?
Yes,
Hemovigilance.
sir.
Yeah, please,
Sorry.
please, sir,
Yeah.
please.
So we have a hemovigilance network of India, hemovigilance program of India, which is run by National Institute of Biologicals, Noida. And almost all of us send our data, the adverse reactions in patients' data to the NIB. So we have an active hemovigilance program. It has also begun uh, taking data for donor adverse reaction in donors also. So even if somebody has a vasovagal reaction or somebody has a hematoma, even those adverse reactions are reported to hemovigilance. So hemovigilance is a very active program in India now.
Okay.
But for TTI, I'm not sure because TTI usually happens, after several weeks or months. So they hardly get reported to the blood center or, to the hemovigilance program of India.
Mhm. Okay. Any final thoughts?
Yes, sir. I just have a one message for the people who are listening to this webinar, who are attending this webinar, is that please use a very sensitive first test, which should be either an ELISA or a CLIA, and a subsequent test can be a rapid test before you notify the donor. And this is doable by all the blood centers. It is not expensive. It's doable. You don't need fancy equipment or very highly skilled manpower to do a rapid test. So it's very doable in every situation in every blood center. It can be any remote corner of the India and it can be done.
Dr. Ashwin, any final thoughts?
Final thought is nothing but quality comes with price, sir. So we have to do a quality process by selecting a appropriate kit for our blood centers, and we need to follow the SOP. Definitely, we can achieve a safer transfusion practice. But even though all these tests are available, blood is not 100% safe. It always carries a risk of when the disease transmission.
So that would mean that education of even the user is required, that whenever they use blood, there is a risk involved. So the benefits must far outweigh the risk involved, then they should be used. And of course, as both of you have mentioned, if there's a centralized blood center with collection of blood from the periphery, decentralized collection of blood so that donation can occur, and then it's tested in the center and then made available, that would be a far better than having many fragmented blood centers in the unit. I thank you both for your time and sharing the expertise. I hope the audience has benefited, and maybe we'll meet again sometimes. Mr. Arjun, you would like to say a few words?
It's always nice to have the last word in these kind of senior panel discussions. But gentlemen, thank you so much for your time and effort. The thoughts that you have put forth today, you know, uh, they are very relevant, of course, NAT being the ideal preferred standard of testing. But given the fact that India runs on potholed roads, well, potholed roads don't make ideal conditions for NAT. They're very good at in the urban centers, in a Delhi, in a Mumbai, and a Bangalore. But like Dr. Ashwin Kumar as well as Dr. Tiwari mentioned, go for something that is accurate at the beginning, right? Whether it's an ELISA, whether it's a CLIA. And one facet that I think we have kind of ignored somewhere in the whole overall discussion on blood centers is the manpower that comes into the blood centers. ELISA has always been heavily manpower dependent. versus fully automated systems, which comes to where the manpower dependency is reduced. And going forward, everybody wants everything in the tip of their hands on a mobile phone today. So it's only, it's clear that going forward, automation will be more in place. I was listening to what Dr. Ashwin Kumar said. He has automated the ELISA system in his particular lab setup, which is commendable. But again, it takes a lot of time for the turnaround of the tests. So CLIA and maybe smaller centers, smaller things around point of care testing, things which can be certified, because India is such a vast nation from north, south, east, west, that uh, centralizing things can be a bigger challenge sometimes. So if we can get efficient testing systems which meet a national standard, right, and then implement that at a low cost alternatives also, it is my understanding, my opinion, of course, that blood centers can be globally competitive, globally, meet all sorts of global standards when it comes to testing. So thank you all, gentlemen. Thank you very much for your time, and appreciate the effort you put in with your panel discussion today. Wishing everybody here a very happy Dhanteras and a happy Diwali ahead, right? Have a great year
Thank
ahead.
you.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
you.
Thank you so much.
Right, Dr. Thank you.